Hi everyone, and welcome back to the IAMT podcast with me, Matt Stagg, and I've got a very special guest, and we were lucky to get Jamie in at the last minute. Jamie Dunn from Lawo is a CTO, and Jamie, do you want to give us just a little bit of an intro into what you do and what Lawo do?
Yeah, sure. So I think in the last couple of months, I took over the role of CEO of Lawo. You know, Lawo is I think a well-established brand. We are now 56 years old. Originally coming from an audio background, so I think most people will know us from that audio background. But actually, over the last 10 years, we've been absolutely transforming and adding the video component to our portfolio, and now we would really categorize ourselves more as a media company rather than an audio or video company. So I've just taken over the last 2 months as the CEO. I've been actually with the company 15 years. So it's not a brand new thing for me. It's an exciting time right now. It's very transformational in the industry right now, of course, and maybe we want to talk a little bit about that.
And I think it's interesting because I work with a lot of audio guys. We do a lot of private 5G in my company, and one of the big things, if you go from audio to video, you've already nailed it, in terms, because audio, someone said once, well, your ears don't blink, so I better get it right. And it's it's tough.
Well, as an audio company, we always used to say, like, picture without sound is nothing, but sound without picture is radio.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's perfect. I'd be really interested. So you stepped up into the role. What would be, as you came into it, do you see as your sort of core focus near term as a sort of evolving Lawo?
Well, as I said, it's been a very transformational time in the company. The last 5 years, we've had a strategy to really bring a brand new technology stack to the portfolio, which is about convergence. And I think this is the key topic. We are, the fact that we are able to cover the audio and video aspects, the convergence of these two things is really now the key, I believe, in terms of how we now address the customer challenges, which, let's be honest, is about budgets and commercial topics. So we've come to a point now where the technology is just purely an enabler to be able to address those topics. How is the question, of course.
And that's the interesting part, and that's why having companies like yours that can help with that transition. We know that we're all going to move from single purpose products. It's going to be more platform based approach, but are you seeing a difficulty in people being able to make that approach?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think, first and foremost, the convergence that I talk about in terms of bringing onto a platform, the advantages of that is the ability with modern software, which is basically what our platform is about, the ability to take containerized functionality, be able to spin that up onto standard IT technology, so standard server CPU compute, being able to spin that up and spin that down. And this is where the dynamic nature of infrastructure comes into it. So you've probably heard that term, dynamic media facility. That is literally about now utilization. So I have a firm belief that really the only way to truly save costs is to maximize utilization of assets that you purchase.
Of course, you got to sweat them.
So with basically an architecture now where we move the infrastructure to standard IT, of course on the network side, so the IP transition is still, I think, most of the, I would say globally, most of the infrastructure is still SDI.
I know you'll drag some of those engineers kicking and screaming before you get the, and there is, we joke about that, but, that part of that transition is bringing people along with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, the transition to IP was never about just going to IP. Actually, where we are today in terms of software, and this is the key part, the journey to IP was always about getting to software, because once we are now in software, in standard compute, that's what I mean. We now have an agile infrastructure. Now, that allows us to address the topic of utilization.
Yes.
So typically, if you were building a facility or building an open truck, you always were thinking about the maximum requirements that you need, thinking about the investment that you're making and the money you have, and you always try to basically think about the maximum.
And didn't use half of it half the time.
So if you walk around a facility these days, you know, you could say that maybe even 20% of that infrastructure is used at one time.
Yes.
If that's the case, if we have the ability with dynamic infrastructure or flexible infrastructure, that we can address that 80% by saying, okay, we're only using 20% of our infrastructure most of the time, then by being able to agilely change an infrastructure that you invest in, but be able to change it dynamically, so the functionality of it, then you're able to address serious cost savings. Tie that into a commercial model, and that's the important part, right?
Yeah,
obviously, CapEx is a very traditional way that this market is
I think we will be one of the last. You know, we're slow to get over that CapEx, OpEx.
Exactly, and there's a place for both. I mean, actually, even though we offer our licensing both on a perpetual basis, because we believe that if you use something all the time, and there are some things that you use all the time, then the best return on investment is to buy it, right?
But you're right. But, you know, perpetual licensing is, you know, it's a capex, but you're still getting the elasticity.
Right, and elasticity is a great word for this, because on a software base now, with the elasticity that you talked about, in other words, the ability to spin up a mixing console onto the same infrastructure that you spin up a multi-viewer or an up-down cross. The thing is that by being able to do this dynamically, then you're able to basically, with a flexible software asset to that means a software asset that's not attached to a specific function, and this is the beauty of a platform, that we have all of this functionality in a platform by giving a software asset that basically allows you, as you spin up a function, it takes this let's call it a credit. It uses it whilst you use that, but once you stop that function because you're not using it anymore, you put the software asset back into your wallet and you can use it somewhere else in your facility. And this is about addressing the commercial challenges that our customers face, and we really have solutions today, but it is very confusing, and I think a very transitional time, because everyone talks about IP. IP is only the way to get to this software.
That's been, you know, put brilliantly. People are thinking IP is just replacing a cable for another one and a router and a switch, but it is all about being able to get to the software.
Correct, and this really, I think, actually, this is not new for us. Actually, for Lawo, we have had this technology for 2 years. It's mature. I think people don't think that this actual, let's say, containerized software infrastructure actually is working. It is. We are using on the largest events, the largest global events. This infrastructure exists today, and we have the tools, and others too, but we have the tools to talk about the commercial challenges that our customers face. And I think that's really what this is about. So the interesting thing is that this is now a business discussion, not a technology discussion. And that's the interesting point.
And totally. And it's you know, the technology will always find a way to fix something, but then, you know, the commercial models and, you know, also organizationally, people need to adjust. I was just going to go back on one thing, and you know, when we moved to remote production, you know, it was great there in terms, you know, you look at your carbon footprint of an OB and hotels and everything. But when you were saying, you know, you're walking around and you're only using sort of 20%, still on. You know, it's still powered on. So do you see that there's a benefit, sustainability benefit of only using it when you want it?
Of course. So if you're only using 20% of the infrastructure, then you only really need to, if you can flexibly use their assets behind which manage that infrastructure, you can save costs in all aspects. A server, for instance, when its processing is not being used, its power consumption goes down.
Yeah.
So simple things like that.
Yeah.
So this is I don't say the future, it's here today. There are tools available to address the commercial squeeze that everyone's feeling, but infrastructure is the key element, right? So, and we decided a long time ago that, for instance, on the processing side, so as I said, I think it's quite revolutionary, although it was very hard to bring this message across, that if you take a standard server, and on that server, I can spin up a mixing console, but on the same server, I can also spin up a multi-viewer. Now you start to understand what we mean. We're abstracting the hardware from the software.
Yeah. And interestingly, and this is where, we've seen it, other industries have done it before, it's AWS and understanding that cloud bit. But it is, you come to somewhere like NAB, it used to be really easy to show people what they were getting. And I think part of that problem is it's very difficult to if someone's not from that and they're saying we want to do this, because broadcasters are used to seeing stuff, and that's where I think that's where some of the pushback comes, is like, where is it?
Sure, we're used to taking bits of hardware and saying, okay, this is dedicated to this function, this is dedicated to this function, and now we move to a completely software-orientated world where a server can do any of those functions at any time. And I think that's part of the challenge we have right now, is that a lot of people are still in SDI. I still would say the majority of the market is in SDI still. Yeah. And they haven't made the transition to IP yet. Vendors like us are asking them to think about software, which is the step further and the destination of where IP was always supposed to be.
That's
not easy.
No, that is that is a great. But having you come on here is great, because some of IAMT's customers need to understand the vendor community, as well as the media and the buyers of that tech also need to understand how that all fits together, because you're not just going to have one person's mixing desk come up on software. So everybody needs to work out. What I did want to do before we wrap up, because we've got you here, your company's visionary, you have a clear view. What next year, NEB, how much further would you think our industry have gone down? What is the inevitable route that you've ploughed? Well,
let's say we've already the industry has started on that. I think in 1 year's time, of course, vendors like us are already providing those solutions. We're just going to add further value to those platforms, right? We're not the only platform, that's clear. There are other platforms, but I think interoperability between vendors is very important. To be frank, I think customers are probably going to need to start to look at less vendors, because in terms of complexity or let's say managing such an infrastructure, you're going to need to have less partners, to be honest.
And also, it comes down to, whenever it is, fragmentation leads to complexity technically and commercially, and it doesn't benefit anyone. So
no, exactly. But I think we're on a journey here. We're on a pathway. I'll be truly honest with you. I believe right now we're in a little bit of the technology adoption chasm, as you would call it.
No, good.
We have early adopters, but we have a lot of confusion, I think, in the market. But my message is that this technology is out there. It works. We are one of those vendors who offers that. We're not the only one. There are others. But you see the tendency in the marketplace right now and from other vendors is driving towards containerized software as infrastructure. So it's an exciting time.
It is a very exciting time, and we're going to see a lot more. And people are going to be increasingly knocking on your door to help them through this transitional phase. Jamie, thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.